welcome to the Tunepact Podcast. I'm your host, the punk rock pop, Leigh Pierce, and today's episode we're going to be talking about unique marketing and knowing your audience. And I can't think of anybody better to have on for that than the thrash metal royalty, Vinny Crastellano from Belushi Speedball. Vinny, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your band?
Yeah, so I'm the lead singer of Belushi Speedball and one of the main songwriters. And we're a crossover thrash band. It's super satirical. It's very tongue-in-cheek. We don't take anything too serious. The music is written seriously, but it's really fun. And, one of my biggest creative outlets for me when I'm not writing music or not playing shows is creating one-off merch. I do a lot of DIY merch myself, and I take a lot of pride in doing it, and I've really pushed myself artistically and creatively to make some really unique things.
Well, yeah, let's cover some of those. That's why I've had you on here. You're well known for the unique releases, your one-offs and stuff like that. I actually had to put off a list here. So there's just some of it. You've released music on Dunkaroos, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, Sega, VHS, 8-track, Teddy Ruxpin, and then even recently slices of pizza encased in resin. Now, yes. This is it blows my mind. I'm a music guy, but I'm a marketing guy for 40 years. This stuff just blows my mind. It's so creative, and nothing anybody else is doing unless they're ripping somebody off. And, how did you come up with this stuff, and how do you actually make it happen?
So it is it started kind of with just like a snowball effect, like anything else, kind of like the band itself. And I gotta go back. I think the Game Boy release was like the first really weird thing I did. I can't remember because I did Furby also, and I don't remember if the Furby was before the game or not because now it's a blur. But yeah, I went down a rabbit hole and I wanted to see if I could make it happen. And then I did. And then each time I kind of pushed myself to see what the next thing is, I guess. And I'll get an idea and I'll fixate on it. And then I'll really, try to make it come to fruition. I also have like a modeling background. I play Warhammer 40K. I paint miniatures. I build them, and I play orcs. And so with orcs, there's a lot of kit bashing and a lot of like really unique things that you end up making. And so that definitely transferred over into my music and stuff and those items you're talking about. But yeah, each item it's a different process. The pizzas are like my least favorite thing to make. Like serious knives, it's such a pain in the butt. But each one has a different technique. And some things I can assembly line, some things I have to do one at a time. So
that's just incredible. So now I first came across you about 4 years ago. I was on YouTube scrolling through the old classic goofy thrash bands like Ludacris and Sacred Reich and stuff. And I'm scrolling through and there I see someone in a Rocksteady costume. And it says, "You can't rock steady without bebop" by Belushi Speedball. And I was like, no way is this a real thing. And I watched that video and I was like, this has got to be like a one-off parody or something. Nobody actually is doing this. This is incredible. And I deep dive on you, and I was just floored. I was just floored because I am a complete nostalgia pop culture guy. As you can see behind me, I love that stuff. And clearly you do too. You can see it. Everything from SpongeBob, Ninja Turtles, Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing that you got these themes in your songs. So obviously you put your love for nostalgia and pop culture and probably just your childhood memories out there in your music. It obviously drives you. And honestly, how much of that influences your music or your marketing ideas?
Sure. Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. It's nostalgia for my childhood. Um, when we were on tour, I got the pleasure to kind of hang out with Brent Ferguson of I'm wearing a shirt, U.S. Bastards, but he also played guitar for Guar for a while, and I got to hang with him, and we were kind of talking about that. He kind of brought up what drove him to write his style of music, and I said, man, for me, my father passed when I was 23. I'm 35 now, and when he passed, I was like, man, life's short. And so I started the band like immediately after I started Belushi. And a lot of what I'm doing, I had a really cool childhood with my dad. He took us to see movies nonstop. Um, man, he was always down to watch cartoons with us, video games, toys. I love toys, dude. Like he took me, you know, uh, almost every day to go get like a new Ninja Turtle or something. And so a lot of what my music is it's channeling my childhood. It's channeling a time when I guess things didn't, suck as bad. And I feel like a lot of people need that. They need that tongue in cheek, that fun, just carefree, remember what it was like to be a kid again. And I do that a lot in my music. And a lot of the songs kind of, I don't want to sound like because I'm really not. A lot of it's so face value, but I do hide stuff in it sometimes. Like Doug Dimmadome, there is a line in there that's directly talking about my father, and man. So it's one of those deals to where I think that's kind of really what I'm trying to go for. It's just something fun, carefree. And if someone says something mean to us, we'll write a song about it. So yeah,
So is
man.
that kind of how you figure out your releases too? Like obviously you do all the classic nostalgia type game cartridge releases. Is it try to give people something you wish you had back when you were a kid, being able to grab a N64, a Game Boy cartridge, pop it in, and have that in your ears? Like how incredible would that have been?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like a dream of from when we were kids that like, man, I want my own Super Nintendo game, And I'm such a novice with that stuff. Like it is very low level home brewing and hacking that's going on. It's not anything too incredible. But I get it to work and I make it happen. And me and my buddy Clay, he's in a band called Foxbat, super talented. We talk about this all the time that sometimes you want the merch item just to exist. And like a lot of our merch items, like I don't really make anything on them. The Super Nintendo albums, I make $5 on those. Uh, the pizzas, it's $50 just in the resin alone for the pizzas. But you want it to be out there and you want it to exist. So you make it happen. His band released a comic book and we kind of talked about this and like he talks about how he lost a lot of money doing it, but they're out there. People have his comic now. It's kind of one of those things. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like all your releases, all your merch stuff like that. I mean, a lot of it's one-offs or small batches or small
Yes.
productions of, but this stuff's gone instantly. I can never get my hands on this stuff. I'm so jealous. But like, so I mean, you clearly know your audience. You know your target market. You know your fans, like your hardcore fans. How were you able to nail down who your fan base, who your target audience was, and how are you able to create merchandise and releases geared so perfectly towards them?
I don't, so I don't know, like, I don't know necessarily that I'm gearing it towards my fans. More or less, I'm gearing it towards myself to where, like, hey, this is something I would like. And to be honest, like, I mean, I make music that I listen to. I love crossover thrash, SOD, and Municipal Waste. Like, all that stuff is like top notch, my favorite. So obviously if people like my music, they're probably like me. So but the cool thing with Belushi is because of the way our live shows are with all the trash flying and the party, the way the music is and the way that we are as individuals, we built a band to where we can really do anything we want and it makes sense. Because it's chaos. It's like organized chaos. I sold my socks once on Bandcamp, one off pair of socks, just told my wife I'm gonna do it, and she said, "You won't do that," and I did. And someone bought, $2 for my one-off socks, and then sold my tour used shoes. Those went to Carl actually. His son bought them for him. Carl's out in Atlanta. He was in the hospital. Which much respect to Carl. He's like, I want to say he's 76 maybe. He goes to a bunch of punk shows, and he ended up getting knocked down pretty hard in a mosh pit, and that's how he ended up in the hospital. He's good now. He's stabilized and. But anyways, back on track. I think a big part of it is that we are able to do whatever we want and it fits. And our fans know that like when you're purchasing one of the items from me, oftentimes it's going to be a 1 of 1 or a 1 of 10 or a 1 of 20. It's going to be a limited thing, and it's going to be something that I made personally that I put my hands on. And there's not a lot of bands that do that you're getting it direct from me, you know what I mean? So I think that helps. I really do. So
And on this same page, talking about the fans, like it's the same thing with your live shows. I haven't been lucky enough to make it to one yet. By the time I am, I'm gonna be too old to freaking go. I'm gonna end up killing myself. But like I see all the footage of your stage show. You're so good about always posting like the next day about this is what we did last night. You missed it, and it's so cool to see. I love seeing your live stuff. I mean, doesn't matter if they're moshing to Spinelli Slam or if the entire audience is laying on the floor rolling around like night crawlers.
Yeah,
like you have just like this rabid loyal fan base. Like you even were one of the headliners at the Gathering. Like you've got that good hard fan base, and they're used to chaos like you were talking about, and especially when it comes to your stage annex. Like when you get ready for a gig, like every time I see them, like they can't, what are they going to do to top this? And then like a month later you post a video of something else you've done. And like, how do you go in with a plan, or does some of it kind of go by the venue's rules too on what can go on?
Yeah, so it's both. And actually, so that is kind of why we've had so many lineup changes. Is we started touring way more in Louisville. When we were playing a lot of local shows, we know all the venue owners and the people that are booking it, and their personal friends, and they let us almost do whatever because they know we're going to clean up. But you also got 5, 6, 7 people showing up with a car full of stuff. How does that transfer over when you're on the road, for multiple days at a time? So there's compromise involved. There is. But like this run we did with X-Cops, like we did a lot of toilet paper because we were indoors. We weren't the headliner, so we don't have a really long slot. So we got to make sure we clean up super quick. And the crowds always clean up. It's kind of a rule as real Belushi fans help clean up, and they always do. We hand them trash bags. They're so cool. We help too as much as we can, and we get that place spotless in a matter of minutes. But we used to do a lot of liquids indoors. It's a pain in the butt. Mm-hmm. It really is. Unless you're doing an operation like Guar size or ICP, to where like no, the venue knows and they have a day ahead of time to prep. When you're kind of at our level, it's us having to show up and prep everything and wrap everything, and then still it's a crapshoot if it all holds up, and then people can slip and get hurt. So it's best that when we're indoors now, we keep it a dry mess, is what we call. Lots of cardboard, paper. This run we played Hash Sling and Slasher live, so we threw out 100 spatulas a night or something. Yeah, and, so. You get it down kind of to like a science, like, hey, this is the items we need before each show. And the venues are pretty cool with us basically being like, hey, we're going to do a mess. It's a dry mess. It'll be cleaned up before we even get off the stage. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we've been. Now, if we're outdoors, it's no holds bar. It's all in everything we can do. if we're doing festivals, the bigger shows, we try to do something really special and go really all out. Like Milwaukee Metal Fest, we did 200 Nerf guns.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's really cool. So it depends and it varies. But the more that we do this, the better that we get it dialed in, because it is a learning process. It really is. And the last thing you want to do, especially if you're me, is you don't want to be at a venue till 5 a.m. scraping jelly beans around. You know what I mean? And I've been there, and it's like, man, this sucks. Can't do it every time. So
you should do a time lapse of as the show's ending to the crowd, the way they clean up. Like, that'd be something really cool to see, and some good promotion too. Going like, hey, see, we make a mess, but we clean it up when we're done.
You're not wrong. Yeah, that's genius.
So, what advice do you got for other independent artists that are looking at trying to find unique, or maybe they are even scared to do something weird, or that's
Yeah, I think be genuine to yourself. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Someone gave me an idea, but it was one of those things to where I just could not pull it off without it being kind of cringy, I guess. If I feel like, it doesn't feel right, I won't do it. So be genuine to yourself, but also, who cares? Don't be scared to, like, this is your art. This is what you want to do. You're always going to have people that are jealous, and you're always going to have haters. And, that's just kind of part of it. It comes with the territory. But, like, if you like it and you genuinely show passion for what you're doing, others will see that, and they'll follow suit. They'll catch on real quick. So I think that's a big thing, man. Like, for instance, one of the things I wanted to do is I made, like, action figures of myself. I did resin action figures. And it's something I always wanted to do. And I mean, they're not the best, but I pushed myself through a process to do it, and I made it happen. So it's one of those things to where, even if it's not the best, just make it happen, and and be proud of it. You know what I mean? It's always a process.
So whether it's like doing the wiring or programming, doing for when it's like the retro game cartridges or the Teddy Ruxpin, or
Sure.
any of that stuff, or doing the other merch like the action figures you're talking. Like, is this stuff you had any experience with before, or did you just decide I'm going to learn how to do it because nobody else is doing it?
Sure. So, like, the video games, when I was a kid, I learned how to sprite hack, which is kind of what I did for the Super Nintendo album. I don't want to say the name of the game I did, but I learned how to sprite hack, how to rework sprites. And then, when you learn how to kind of modify a video game, you could start to learn how to be able to modify the music or modify other aspects. And then you just go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, my experience for that was very limited. I did teach biology for 12 years. So the whole, and I taught robotics, the whole engineering process and prototyping and troubleshooting is pretty ingrained in me. So because I'm able to do that, I'm able to kind of take the leap and figure things out. But, like, no, I learned how to pour resin, this year. The action figure thing, I was self-taught a couple years ago. I learned how to do that. The Teddy Ruxpin thing was really, really hard. It was one of those things that we tried years ago, and then I just got an itch. And I'm like, you know what? There's got to be a way to figure this out. And I learned how to, like, isolate his synchro sounds. Essentially, what you're doing is you're making a mixtape. And so you can isolate his synchro sounds and match him up with your music, and he'll move from certain, like, they sound like grinding noises. And then there's one channel dedicated to audio, so you can essentially, like, erase his original audio, put yours on there, match up those sounds, and make, like, this little mixtape, and he'll move and do all that stuff. But yeah, that was something very, again, I went down a rabbit hole, and I tried to do it. I'm by no means an audio engineer or anything like that. So
just basically, if you want to try doing something, you don't know someone that does it, research and figure it out.
Yeah, there's YouTube videos out there, lots of old forums. The video game stuff was a lot of old forums from like the 2000s. The Game Boy Advance album, in order to pull those off, I actually had to use Windows Vista. I have an old gateway because make PCM files. I had to use something called a cool editor to get it into the proper bit rate for the Game Boy. Like, you don't be scared of old technology if you want to go down that path. But you got to be willing to try.
I loved Windows Vista. Everybody laughs at me, but I loved Windows Vista, and the version of Movie Maker that came with was incredible. And everybody laughs, but that was probably my favorite Windows was Vista.
I spent a lot of time on that Movie Maker, and I completely agree with that. The new Movie Maker is it's not at all the same.
There's no free product out there that even compared to what that did. I did a lot of old short horror movies and horror comedies back in the day, and that's what I used was Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah, no, it was we did a lot of stuff when we were kids with it, and the nice thing is like you didn't have a watermark. The only problem is the resolution isn't as high as the newer one, but I mean, it was so easy to use, and there was a lot of I agree. I use something on my phone called InShot, and I highly recommend any artist to purchase it. And it does a really good job of putting your videos in the right ratio for different social media formats. And you could, export them at 4K if you need to. And there's a lot of things. Yeah, buy InShot. It's like a $15 app or something like that per year, and it's worth every penny. I use it all the time. So.
That's awesome. So, all right, got a little more time left. So I want to touch on something. So a lot of people don't know the difference between thrash or crossover thrash, and this new generation, including you guys and Municipal Waste, Insanity Alert, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. God, you guys come up with the greatest band names. And everybody calls it pizza thrash. And there's some bands that get mad because it's like some seriously talented musicians, and some of them feel like calling it pizza thrash is almost kind of degrading, which I could see that. And like you guys and guys like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, clearly we're pizza thrash, we'll show you pizza thrash. And it's almost like it gave you guys a license to be as silly as you wanted, and everybody still took you seriously.
Yeah, just lean right in. I had an interview with I want to say it was Spin, and they asked me about that. And like a lot of the artists in the article are like, "This is fun." No, they give us serious answers. And I forgot what I said. I said something like they're trying to. I was being pretty satirical with it, and I said something along the lines of they're trying to call us pizza thrash like it's an insult. Pizza is awesome. Like, it's the best food in the world. So they're just calling us the best music in the world. Like, I said something along the lines of that. But yeah, we just leaned straight into that one. And there's bands like in Australia, Pizza Death, that literally are, just a pizza-based thrash band. It's so awesome. But yeah, man, I think, that had to be why I did the pizza. I don't even know why I did the pizza now. What made me do it? Something real stupid that pushed me to do it. But, anyways. Yeah.
That's some of the best ideas, actually. A short film me and the production team are working on right now. The whole thing started because of a comment my professor made to me my final semester, and I ended up writing an entire freaking screenplay based around it. And it's the stupidest thing, and it's going to turn out great. So sometimes it's those where you're like, that's nothing, and you jot it down, and then you're like, oh, that's going to be something. That's going to be something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the best, man. So that's usually how everything kind of works out for us, is it just snowballs from a really dumb idea. a joke or something that's said. So
Well, that's something I love too. Is you guys do the little filler tracks and skits
oh, it's
and stuff like that. Like I see, I'm pushing 50, so like I grew up with all the old skate punk and
sure.
crossover thrash, all the stuff that was in the Thrasher magazine compilations, and like I'd buy those albums then, and like half the stuff is like 30-second songs. It was all these little filler tracks because they're like,
Sure.
record company said they needed 12 songs. Well, we can break this one into 5, and like then the little fun skits at the ends, kind of like hidden and stuff. Like I just don't see too many people doing that. You guys are just awesome at that. Is that just another throwback to the thrash metal we grew up on, or is it just sometimes, like you said, it comes out as a dumb idea, or starts out as a dumb idea and ends up awesome?
Man, it comes from hip hop. Wu-Tang and Redman always had skits. Like, they would have like a 40-track album and half of them were skits. And like MC Chris always did skits. And God, again, they kept growing. And it started off as like just a couple. Like we had just a couple, right? And then it was like, oh, we're going to do one on every song. And one of the skits is Kyle goes, he's the guy that does a lot of backup vocals, by the way. He's got the kind of higher than me voice. Yeah, it's like skit on every song. Do you not care about the flow of this album? He says like that. And then, man, I'll be honest. So we took it back a bit though with Stelkira, because a lot. As much as I appreciate that, like you love the skits, and I do have some fans that do. What Us Worry, when we first released it, I did a ton of skits on it. And that was kind of like the first time I was really paying attention to Spotify and people are really streaming music. I mean, we were releasing music on all platforms before, but that was when I was like, oh wait, people are going to be streaming this. And so the problem is that, with the skits being attached to the song, if someone listens to it on like, let's say they're listening to like a thrash, playlist or something like that. Well, dude, if one of our songs pops up and then there's a minute-long skit, they're like, what the hell is this? Or they skip it, or they never want to listen to it again. So I quickly recognized that, and I had a lot of criticism for the skits being too long on What Us Worry. So, the next week I had it re-released skit-free or a skit option, and we have a double disc of it where you have both. And then, like, on the streaming, I think I only kept the skit on. I think I only kept 2 skits, and one of them was the speed grind, and the other one was Municipal Waste, and even there's a skip-free version of that. And then with Stelkira, I made sure the skits were skippable, and I think I only put 2 on there. And so, I love it. I think it's funny, but when the masses are like, it's too much, we hate it, and then your numbers go down, you got to pay attention to that. So.
Well, and I suppose on something like Spotify, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, like, you want to attach them to the song, but then like you said, you don't want that minute-long skit at the end, but then you don't want to cut them into actual tracks like the way like Infectious Grooves used to. The track would just be the skit because you don't want to come and shuffling through somebody's playlist and all they get is this random skit, the weirdest thing they've ever heard. Be like, what was that?
And that was actually the option I chose to do.
That's awesome.
Well, to be honest, the skits don't really show up in the playlists because they don't get a ton of plays. So, like, the main songs do. And if it does, it's a skit. You know what I mean? And then it's a way better option than having it attached. And you're right. The other option is just to not put it out there. But I decided with Stelkira that I would put the whole album up on Spotify the way that you would listen to it if you sat down with the CD and went straight through it. So, it is a double-edged sword. You're not wrong. But you know what? You gotta pay attention to the times and what's popular, and you gotta always be willing to be flexible, and we call it artistic compromise. At the end of the day, what is your goal? If your goal is to be an artist and you don't care if anyone appreciates your music or listens to it, do whatever you want. but I really want people to listen to my music and come out to my shows. So I gotta kind of make sure that, you know, we do some things. Cause like, I talk about this too with my music I wrote. A lot of the early Belushi stuff, like early, like 2013, 2014, it's like, there's no chorus and it's just straight thrash and real brutal. And it wasn't fun to listen to. So I have choruses in there. People want to sing along, you know. I want them singing my songs. So, you know, that's artistic compromise.
All right. So I got to ask you one thing. It had nothing to do with marketing, but I remember, I think recently you got one of your Holy Grail comics finally, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
What did you finally get?
I got an Amazing Fantasy 15. It's the first appearance of Spider-Man. So I had to, I've had an eBay account since I was 13 and I'm 35 now. So it's, you know, I think I had it since 03, 02. And I would buy, that's kind of what I spent my money on, especially when I was like 16 to 18. I bought key issue comics. And back then in the mid 2000s, before the MCU, a lot of those key issues were not that bad. Like, you know, I picked up issue 1 of Hulk for $600. And then, you know, anyways, long story short, I had to sell all those key issues at, to get that Amazing Fantasy, but it was too good of a deal to pass up. It's a lot of money. I don't have liquid money like that. And the way I justified it was I essentially traded my books because I sold them off. So I sold my issue 1 of Hulk. I sold Hulk 181, its first Wolverine. I sold, you know, Journey into Mystery 83, its first Thor. I sold a lot of books to be able to have it. And then that way I wasn't out any money and my wife's not as mad at me. So.
I can't say much. I do that with Lego sets.
Oh, yeah. But it's also an expensive hobby.
Exactly. I build them. I put them right back in Ziploc bags. I'm sorted because then if I want, I can sell them off and buy a different Lego later on.
I had a friend that was doing that too. Yeah, it's, you know, man, it's all about the chase. And it's one of those things to where that book, you know, the Spider-Man book, it's been out of my reach every single time. And man, I remember being like 18 and losing an eBay bid to one that was in like a 3.0 or a 4.0, like mine's at a 1.0. It's super low grade. It has a cover, so that's cool. But you know, one that was pretty presentable, and I lost it for like $1,500. And I was like, I'm not going that high, you know. And that book now, like, you know, the listener can look up what Amazing Fantasy 15 and a 4.0 sells for. But the one thing with comic books, especially those key issues, it's the same thing as like Legos. You won't lose any money on them.
No.
Worst case scenario, you break even, but they almost always are increasing. So, yeah.
All right. So, well, thanks again for coming on. Any last words for our listeners regarding unique marketing and finding and knowing your audience?
Yeah. So, you know, the biggest thing, I should have touched on this. So, like Matt Bacon and Muse Formation, is it Jesse Cannon? They harp on this a lot. Whatever your music niche is, whatever your genre is, find your community. And so, like, Belushi really got our legs going whenever I found the New Wave of Thrash YouTube channel. That guy uploads every band imaginable.
Yep.
And he uploaded Belushi, and then, bam, right away we had international fans. And then I got shout out to Neil Beardsley. He runs the Facebook community page, the New Wave of Thrash also page, and got, you know, he liked us, and we submitted, you know, we joined that Facebook group. I love all the bands that they post, and then you get a part of that community, and that's really the step one to finding your fan base, is find your community for your music. Artists that support other artists and fans that support your style music. And so I think that's really the biggest thing you can do. As far as marketing, man, you know, your band is your brand. That gets harped on a lot. A lot of people say that, and it's really true. Like, you think of, you know, You see the Crimson Skull, you know it's Misfits. You see Black Flag, you know right away. So like you got to think of what is how are you going to be able to basically have your band stand out to where when someone sees, for us, it's like you see Stella, you see the Siamese cat, what are you going to do to be able to like basically draw eyes to you, and that it's we know exactly that's Dead Kennedys, whatever it may be. I shout out to my buddy. He's in a band called Scrooge Mandela, and he has a very specific artist that does all his artwork, and it's always kind of has like this Willy Wonka looking theme to it. And it got to the point now where like if I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see that art, I know it's him posting. I know it's his band before I read anything or I even see the logo. So like that's really the goal. At least for me.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really important is people forget about Facebook groups.
Yeah.
I was social media manager for a couple music venues, and that was first thing was get on like, many related groups as you can, because they're community, music groups for a reason, and get on there and find like-minded people, and start helping promote other people. They always start helping promote you back too.
Correct. Yeah, it's huge, man. So.
All right. Well, Vinny, thanks for coming on. Look forward to seeing whatever crazy thing you come up with next. Like, I mean, it's like always a highlight whenever something comes up. I've got you pinned to my top in my favorites, so it always comes up first, so I can see what Vinny's thinking of this time. So keep the fun coming. Everybody loves it. And like I said, thanks for coming on. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you next time.